So we have an exciting lineup today. We have the Jimmy Smith pedal steel trio who's going to perform for us. We have a community moment. We have a community moment from Brandon Baldwin, who is going to give a talk on finding purpose as an atheist. And our main speaker today is from David Tamayo. He will give a talk entitled Secularizing Our Nation's Students. So our main speaker today is David Tamayo. He is David is the founder and president of Hispanic American Freethinkers. He is head organizer of HA-Free, high school outreach mentor program to Hispanic and immigrant students, teaching critical thinking skills and career planning in Northern Virginia. So without further ado, here is David Tamayo.
My name is David Tamayo. I'm the president and founder of Hispanic American Freethinkers. I'm going to try to go through this as fast as possible because I know there's a lot of information to cover, and I don't want to take the whole afternoon here. So the first question that I always get asked all the time is, all right, so is it Latino or Hispanic? What is it that we need to call you? And so just a quick thing. Hispanic really talks about a country where they speak Spanish, so it excludes Brazil and Haiti. And Latino typically talks about ancestry of Latin America, so it excludes Spain because Spain is in Europe. And so really at the end of the day is, do we go with Latino, Hispanic, Latinx? You're starting to hear that Latinx thing and Latine and all these other things. And most Hispanics, like 5% of Hispanics care about Latinx, 95% don't care. They don't care. You can call them Latino, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, so long as you call them. I mean, so long as they're part of the conversation, so long as, so what we're talking about here is not a race, it's an ethnicity. And, Native Americans are part of what a lot of Hispanics are, or a lot of Latinos are. You see, maybe not so great, but you can see in the screen the two children that are in there. One is a Native American from the U.S., and the other one is an American native from Central America, and they could be sisters. They share the same DNA, the same kind of people, but political lines determine that someone is legal and another one is illegal, and we start using those kinds of terms to dehumanize people. The fact is that, by 1783, so several years after the United States had declared its independence and had become a country, Spain still held claim to half of what the United States is today, the continental United States today. And so possibly because of that and other factors, today, 3 out of the 4 most populous states in the United States came from Mexico or Spain, and that's Florida, Texas, and California. And final factoid there is that in the US, there are more people that speak Spanish here in the US than any other country in the world except for Mexico. So think about this. There are more Spanish speakers in the US than in Colombia, than in Chile, than in Venezuela or Panama or even Spain. And so that's something to keep in mind. So why should we care about this? Why should we care about Latinos? Well, Latinos today are about 62 million Hispanics in the United States. So 62 million people in the United States. And that's, it's a big population. It's about 20%, close to 20% of the US population. And to put things in perspective, that, African Americans in this country are 14%, the population. So you have 14% and Hispanics, 19%. And so that means that today, 1 in every 5 kids is under the age of 18, and by 2050, it's estimated that 2 in 5 kids are going to be Hispanic. So it matters that we make sure that these kids are educated, that these kids have critical thinking skills, because these are the kids that are going to take care of us when we're old. So, we want them to be using evidence-based science rather than pseudoscience. So that's one main reason. Another issue that we have is with religion. So most people in the street, you ask them how, Latinos, what religion do you think they are? And most people say, oh, they're like 80% Catholic, 85% Catholic. The fact is that it's probably less than half nowadays. And part of it has to do that, as a former Catholic, most Catholics are bad Catholics. They don't know why they believe in the things they do. They sit, they kneel, up and down, and it's part of the culture, and that's it. But all the other religions are targeting Hispanics at a big rate. So if you look at the Huffington Post recently, Latinos are the Mormons church's fastest growing group. So they're targeting, the Mormon church is targeting Hispanics. 265,000 US Hispanics have converted to Islam. So think about that, converting to Islam. And the majority, more than half, are women, which is mind-blowing. You go from already, Christianity that is not the epitome of friendliness to women's rights to, something worse in my opinion. Anyway, so the only good sort of news in recent is that Hispanics, the non-religious are growing, and that's a good thing. Now, to give you an example that I'm not really kidding you about this is my front door bell from yesterday, just yesterday. In the morning at 10:02 a.m., we have two Pentecostals that came I wasn't home the entire day. So they came in, rang the bell. If I'm at home, I welcome them in, and I'm like, all right, let's bring it on. Let's talk it out. And they usually want to leave, and I'm like, no, don't leave. Come on, And then you see in the afternoon, the Mormon girls came over, and they knew they were being recorded, so they read some Bible verses just for me to do. But really, what we're talking about here is this: a couple of eye-opening things. About 3 years ago or so, I went to a conference. I'm a CIO. I'm a chief information officer for an aerospace engineering company. And I went to this conference, about 2,000 people. And when I looked at all the roster of all the people that attended, there were 4 Hispanics. Well, later I found out there was a 5th guy who had a name that you couldn't tell that he was Hispanic. But even assuming that, out of 2005, and I'm thinking, I bet you if we were at a landscapers conference, Hispanics would be terribly overrepresented. And if we were, janitors, it'd be the same way. So I just, part of what I want is as a country, we want to make sure we don't lose the minds of the people that 20% of the population and go from there. So another eye-opening thing is about 3.5, 4 years ago, also, I received an invitation from a high school that we had not been to, where they said in there, could you please come and talk to the students about what career opportunities are available for Hispanics? And my answer is, what? What the hell are you talking about? How about all of them? All of the careers should be available to Hispanics. I mean, if a career is not available to Hispanic, then it's plain and simple discrimination or racism. So it's got nothing to do with it. Now, I talked to that teacher and that actually guidance counselor, and they were terribly sorry for their wording and all of that, but it's really kind of in the background of things. But anyway, so let me get to the part that I want to talk a little bit about today. The slogan for Hispanic American Freethinkers is advancing Latino culture through science and reason. And, it's very general and everything, but, we know that religion is very close to our culture. And so what we need to do is try to figure out how to uncouple those things and kind of fit something else. It's like a protein fitting with something else. We want to make sure that we kind of vaccinate people that way. And so we encourage, what we're trying to do is create this secular culture for Hispanics that fits with our own culture, with our own different cultures. We have several cultures, and try to insert in there a culture of reason and critical thinking, and the big one, the American cultural value of church-state separation, which is really good. Once you get that in place, that helps a lot. So we do all kinds of programs. We do TV programming. We do podcasts. We go talk to the students and so on. So I'll tell you a little bit about going to talk to the students in high schools. And we started that basically in 2011. And there was a crisis in 2011. About 41% of Hispanic students were dropping out of high school. Think about that. I mean, almost half were dropping out of high school. It's just a horrible, horrible thing. And it was lower than any other group, lower than African Americans, Asians, whites, any other group. And so we said, well, we got to do something. You know, we have to try to inculcate this idea of getting more educated. We know that education is a good antidote towards religion and towards bad thinking in general, because it forces you to learn to do critical thinking. So we started the program in Northern Virginia with high school students. Now, high school students are great because they're already starting to question things. They're already thinking about being on their own, being sort of adults. And so they're primed already for you to give them the tools that they need to question things and to be critical thinkers. Now, we started mostly concentrating on a lot of English as second language immigrant kids, mostly because they were at a higher risk of dropping out. A lot of them came from single parent households, a lot of them worked after school. So we figured, okay, let's start with that group. And we started with in Fairfax and Loudoun counties in Northern Virginia. These are very big counties, 260,000 students. It's the 10th largest in the US, and with about 32,000 people working in their staff. So what we're talking about here is 42 high schools where about 57% were minorities. And so that was how we got started. And the idea here is, okay, let's create, the goal here is to inculcate critical thinking skills. And while doing that, promoting pride in differences and make them so they're not ashamed of who they are, but accepting others, so long as that acceptance is based in reason. I am not a proponent that because something is in somebody's culture that it automatically gets a pass. No, that's how we get the mutilations, the sexual mutilations that go on girls, et cetera. So, it's based on reason for sure. And there are lots and lots of things, cultural differences that are great that, it doesn't matter because they're based on reason. So we also started mentoring students. And the idea here is we wanted to inculcate higher education, especially in STEM. You go look and see how many PhDs in mathematics graduate every year from the United States and how many of those are Hispanic. And the number is asymptotically close to zero. So, we want to encourage, again, on all the different fields, Hispanics to be part of that and enjoy the things that come with that. Now, college is not for everybody. So we thought, okay, some people can go and let's say somebody wants to be a bulldozer driver. That's fine, but be the best bulldozer driver that you can be. Make sure that you have, you get training and you get, certificates and all of that. So we want to encourage kids to feel free to reach out for the stars, to go as high as they can, because even if they shoot really high and they only make it 80%, that's still pretty good, better than shooting low and achieving it. Another thing we were looking at was to reduce besides the dropout rate, was teenage pregnancy. There was a lot of teenage pregnancy among Hispanics. So that was something we were looking into. And the main thing, of course, is provide these role models, bringing in professionals, Hispanics that already have achieved a degree of education and all of that, and to say, hey, look, you can be this or you can be that, showing that there's that ability for them to do it. So all of that, we think, is a way of secularizing students. So one of the things so the way we started is we got some shirts. You can see as an example, those two shirts you see there. One says think, and the other one says question everything. And we were giving them out for free. Teachers didn't mind that. I mean, what teacher is going to be opposed to a shirt that says think? And so what we did is we befriended high school teachers. There were a couple that were already members of our group. So we said, hey, how can we get in school? And they said, teachers have actually a lot of leeway. They can always have guest speakers. So whenever we came in for the first time to a school, we invited the principal and we would invite other teachers to come and listen to what we had to say. We also had to become official mentors in the county, which means that they would do training, background checks, make sure you're not bringing in some child molesters, that kind of stuff. So that was something that needed to be done. I'm glad. I like that. And what the other thing that was kind of tricky, we avoided being paired with a student. What they always want to do is say, okay, here's your student, and now you have like a pet, and you train him to do the things they should do. We didn't want to be a big brother kind of thing. What we wanted to do is be able to have a greater reach than that with the teachers. So the way we thought about it, we thought about ourselves as us actually mentoring the teachers more than anything else. What we did is we brought lots of prizes, the shirts, the water bottles, all kinds of things. And we also asked teachers to recommend it to other schools. So that way, and it's funny, a lot of schools say, okay, here's Hispanic American Freethinkers. You won't believe it, but I had only one principal say freethinkers. I know what that means. Most others didn't know they're all like, yeah, I'm a free thinker also. So yeah, we took advantage of that a little bit. Now, so we found some unexpected kind of things, and we found a lot more than this, but these are just some of them. We found that some schools were encouraging, these are secular state schools, they were encouraging prayer groups at lunch. And so they were starting to build a lot of peer pressure for people to sit at this group. And they're all Hispanics. Only Hispanics, were in these prayer groups. A lot of the students were required to have smartphones for ESL classes. So when they don't understand a word, they can look it up in the internet and all of that. And a lot of them couldn't afford it. So they didn't have cell phones. And nowadays, believe it or not, some classes require it. A lot of parents didn't know how to be high school parents because they'd never been high school parents, they'd never been high school students themselves. And so there was a big problem with the parents themselves being a blocker for the kids to get ahead. There were some parents that they couldn't wait to get their kids out of school at 16 so they could go clean offices and clean toilets and do other stuff because we need the money. We need to send money back to our relatives, and we need to take care of our family. So you need to quit school. And there was also a very shocking, purposeful teen pregnancy. Girls were getting pregnant on purpose. A lot of it, and these were the religious girls that were getting pregnant because in the Pentecostal churches where they were being taught that if you're not married by 18, you're an old hag. That you need to find your husband as soon as possible because otherwise somebody's going to take their husband away from you. And so what better way to make sure that the guy doesn't go anywhere by getting pregnant and then, forcing him to get married. Talk about lack of education. So there was in Fairfax, no bilingual program. So a lot of these students that came in, immigrant kids that come in, that came in, documented or undocumented, doesn't matter. These are kids that are here now. They were put in regular English classes where they didn't understand a word, and so they tune out, and they would lose hope and not get the help that they needed. So they start falling behind, and sure enough, as soon as they turn 16, they go out and they don't have an education, and now it's likelier for them to get into a prison than it is to get into college. So, and then we did learn some gut-wrenching stories about rape and things where they said, no, you can't tell anybody because if you do. So a lack of therapists in helping these kids deal with a lot of the trauma that they have to deal with. Anyway, so the format is pretty simple. We go into the classrooms. Our presentations are usually bilingual. We try to win the teacher over, so we promote critical thinking in their subject. So if it's an English, a math, or a history teacher, we focus the stuff and the examples in their way. We do a lot of demos. We do things like tricks with ESP or magic and things like that, just to show them that just because you see something, it doesn't mean that it's real. And because, a lot of them is like, well, if I see it, it's real. No, sometimes our eyes see things that are not there. We need to use our brains more. We need to see things with our brains. What you see there in the right, the colorful thing is actually a clock that changes pattern and colors every few seconds. And so the idea was that if anyone could figure out how the clock displayed time and was able to tell us what the time was, that we would give them the clock. It's about a $40, clock. And so it was interesting to note that the younger the student, typically they got it a lot faster. And in case you don't know, what it says there is 1238. The patterns change and move and the colors change and move, but really what you're doing is counting the dots. And we needed to know also what special rules they had in school. For instance, in the schools here, they don't allow playing cards. And so we couldn't show them any magic tricks that involve cards at all. And so we kept saying to them, the truth wants to be questioned. The truth wants to be questioned. And so they would ask us sometimes questions and like, what do you think about religion? And we would be very, very careful about politics and religion, how we responded to that, but never lied to them and always gave them the truth. Now, the goal really was to create a critical, life-changing moment for the student so that they can start thinking, I could be an engineer, I could be a doctor, I could be this or that, and see themselves that way. We show them a movie called Here Be Dragons, which is an old classic movie for critical thinking. We show it in Spanish or with subtitles. And we also, so they hear the students, the takeaways that they have is question everything, question everything, question everything, because the truth wants to be questioned. And if somebody says, don't ask, or, don't, that's insulting to ask, that's the stuff that needs to be questioned more than anything else. We tell them about evidence and that you need, for little things, little evidence, for big claims, big evidence, and that lots of anecdotes is not evidence. It's just lots of anecdotes. So we try to encourage them to start thinking in that way, to doubt everything, to question their parents, their teachers, everything. If you question everything and it's true, then there's no problem in questioning things. It's those things that you're not supposed to question that is a problem. So the idea is to create critical thinking skills, encourage them to join the chess club, to think more logically, and to, for a long, long time, we tell them about the James Randi Foundation, when they used to offer the $1 million reward, and said, look, for like 40 years, James Randi was offering this and not a single person was able to demonstrate anything. So we never say there are no ghosts, there are no unicorns or anything like that. What we say is there is not enough evidence yet for that. You can always search for the evidence. So I'll show you a couple of slides before I finish, a couple of slides of the things that we show them. For instance, we demonstrate to them that sometimes we judge people by how they dress, and that's a bad thing sometimes. And so in some cases, one of us will come in dressed like a doctor with a stethoscope, just like the actor on the left there. And we'll come into a new classroom and leave immediately, say, no, I forgot something, I'll be right back. And in the meantime, the teacher is saying, well, while we wait, why don't you tell me, who do you think that is? And they go, oh, it's a doctor, it's a cardiologist, this and that. And then we come in and say, no, I'm not a doctor. Just because, you wear the part, it doesn't make it that way. So start thinking critically that way. Again, I come in or others come in and say, look, I'm one of you. I sat where you're sitting there right now. I was poor. I was an immigrant. I didn't speak English, all of this. And look, now I'm, part of the American culture, part of the American life, and you can and be too. You don't have to really give up your old culture to gain a new culture. We start talking about the culture of being, what is true and what is false, what are myths, and have them talk about that themselves. And, what is real? How do we determine that something is real or not real? About pseudoscience. We see a lot of medical things, grandma always has some remedy or something, so how do we question those things? A lot of faulty thinking, horoscopes. Our communities, our Hispanic communities, are full of palm readers, of botanicas where they sell you, saints and cards, and they do, psychics readings, and really all these things to separate you from your money. And typically are the least people the people that can least afford that are the ones that are targeted. We talk about something a little bit more fun, like aliens and UFOs, and let them know that, a UFO stands for unidentified. In other words, not identified. Therefore, we can't assume it's aliens. Now, I've had one principal who took this slide and had me remove it from the deck. So what do you think? I mean, you look at this and it doesn't seem like there'd be a reason to remove this from the deck. And basically, this principal knew that he was familiar with this story where Kids in Africa are being accused and killed for being witches. And in the last decade, over 15,000 have died with machetes, just being chopped to pieces. Because now what the principal didn't want a kid to ask is, who's doing the killing? And the killing are Christians that believe in the literal meaning of the Bible. And the Bible says you got to kill the witches. And so, they would be killing these kids for being accused of witchcraft. We talk about cryptozoology and what that means. And there's cryptozoology in the Latino community. We have the chupacabra and we have La Llorona and all these other things. But anyway, like I said, there are lots of good examples. There are good examples of successes and lots of examples of failures on our part, the way I see it. If we have a student that goes and becomes a pastor, for instance, that to me, that's kind of a loss. But today I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be talking about briefly for 1 second on this. I'm just going to call her D because she still lives in an extremely conservative Pentecostal family. And so when she first started talking to us, and it was online, and then from school, she had heard us talk. And she's very much deeply into into church. That's her up above singing in the choir in a church. And because of this, the truth wants to be questioned. She wanted to know if evolution was real or not. She had heard it a lot from both sides, and she had kind of questions. And she begged her dad to let her go to college. And finally, her dad said, "Fine, just go to college," And she did to study biology, and she loved it. And she loved it so much that she made it her major. And last I talked to her a couple of years ago, she was in medical school, and most of her family didn't know that she had stopped. Well, only her brother knew that she had stopped believing. And but she still goes to church and she participates because it makes her family happy. And that's the thing that with Latinos, it's not that you're going to be ostracized or being kicked out of the house or anything like that. What it is that you don't want to make grandma sad. You don't want to make my mother sad, and you want them all to be happy, and because you love them, and so you don't want to be disappointed to them. So that's the anyway. So how do we know if this is working? Well, in the last 10 years, there's been a significant rate of reduction in dropouts. I was going to put the numbers, but just didn't have the time here. Dropout rates, now the dropout rates are at the college level. So a lot of Hispanics are now going to college. The problem is they're dropping out of college, which is bad, because it's worse actually, because now they only have a high school education, but now they have college debt. They just can't pay that. And the number of Hispanic nuns has grown from 6.4% in 1990, according to Trinity College, to 23% in 2019, according to Pew, in a report that came out a couple of weeks ago. So we know that correlation is not causation, but I'd say Humphrey did it all. And we are the reason and the cause for this great success. I'm so humble. Am I not? Anyway, so last 2 slides. Conclusion, what does this mean? It means that this is the ultimate team sport. We want to create a reality-based America. White, Latinos, American, Asians, we're all together as Americans. We're all here. Once we live here and this is our home, that makes us Americans. And so what happens to one group affects us all. Injustice to one is injustice to all. We don't want, we don't have to have Latinos just helping Latinos. We help everybody to become more rational because we're all Americans. And, as I said before, education is a lot cheaper than prison. Last slide, I promise. So, we want to expand. What do I want to see? What do we want to see going on? We want an expansion of this type of education throughout schools. Man, I'd love to see, even if they teach philosophy in high school or college, be forced as a subject, it'd be great. We want to get teachers to be critical thinkers, because a lot of the times the teachers are kind of the issue. We want studies to be done at the university level on how to decouple the Latino culture from religion, because that's part of the problem. Anytime that someone becomes less religion, they're seen sometimes as a traitor to the culture. Oh, you're just ashamed of being Latino now. You're just embarrassed of being Hispanic. That's not the case. It'd be nice to see formal studies done on the Latino family dynamics, So for instance, the women are the ones that carry the moral anchor in the family. If a boy loses his virginity at 16, he gets a high five from dad and everybody else. But if it's a girl, it's major crisis and crying, and it's not really, there's that machismo still going on there. It'd be good to see on research and so how women, the women's role in the family religiosity. There's some anecdotal data that shows that that the first person to convert in a Latino family to another religion is the mother, is the grandma, are the women in the family, and that the men follow that religion. And so, greater exposure to mainstream America that a Hispanic problem is really an American problem. And I think we have a Hispanic problem that is getting a little bit better, but still, I mean, if you look at that picture in the right bottom, I don't know if you can see it. What it says this is a New York parade for the Hispanic Islamic group. It's called Alianza Islámica El Barrio, New York. And then their slogan is reclaiming our Islamic heritage. Imagine reclaiming our Islamic heritage. Anyway, so like I said, 250,000 Hispanics have converted to Islam. That doesn't help critical thinking. We need to figure out what other things to do. I think this is the fastest I've ever done this because I wanted to stick like within the 25 minutes. So I think I'm done sharing my screen. Is there any questions, complaints? I really don't know how to pass it over.
I don't think we're going to have time for a Q&A, but if people have questions, do you mind if they email you?
On the contrary, I love it if they
Okay.
email us. Now, I want to take credit for one thing. I didn't ask for a dime from anybody. I hate asking for money, and I'm sorry. So, but we are all volunteers, and so we don't have a lot of expenses, and that makes it a good thing because it's really from the heart when we do all this work.
All right. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to, I guess, share my story with you today. Basically, I just want to go over my journey for trying to find purpose in life after growing up in a fundamentalist Christian household. So both my parents have been super religious from before I was born. They met at a Christian leaders conference. They're hyperactive in church, going to church 3 to 4 times a week. All of our friends were in the church. When I was 4 years old, they convinced me that I was going to be going to hell if I didn't accept Jesus Christ into my heart. So there I am, little Brandon, clear the toys out, little sinner, praying to accept Jesus Christ. And, but my life purpose was not to know and glorify and spread Christianity at that time. It was to have fun and play and be a kid, to please my parents. That was basically my life purpose in that moment. But as I grew older, when I was 13 on March 1st, 2001, I remember Christianity became real for me. I accepted Jesus Christ into my heart. I dedicated my life to serving him, to helping spread the word of God. And basically everything about my life became centered around that, because I thought that was how you were a good person, is to go around convincing others to believe in the thing that you believed in. So my entire junior high and high school time period was spent I read and prayed for an hour every morning. I really believed this. I went to church willingly and actively. I sought out to bring my friends to Christ, and I led several of them to Christ. I led Bible studies for other young people. And around that time, like I just threw my heart and soul into that purpose. And as I grew older, I decided the best thing for me to continue this purpose would be to go to Bible school. So I applied and was accepted at Moody Bible Institute, one of the higher, prestige Bible schools in the world. And I really enjoyed my time there. I threw myself into it. Volunteering every week. I became a youth pastor for 1.5 years while I was at school there. But eventually all of the doubts started just racking up in my brain, and I couldn't ignore lots of the different little things like inaccuracies in the Bible, historical inaccuracies. And I grew up in a very literal, traditional Christianity where you take everything from the Bible, point by point, like word by word, and you interpret it and you apply it to your life. I thought the earth was 10,000 years old or less. I didn't think evolution was a thing. I didn't have a proper understanding of science or of history because of the biblical goggles that you have to wear to be able to survive and interpret the reality of the world. So in my junior year at Bible schools, when things came to a head, and I was like, I don't know that I can believe this because of all of these things that were going on in my life. I couldn't accept it anymore on a literal, I couldn't accept Christianity anymore on a literal level, the way I had been raised. And so I was like, I have to start over from a blank slate. Like I was like, I just got to try to explore and understand the world. And if it leads me to becoming a Christian, like how I was raised, then it leads me to be right back to Christ, and I'll live that way. But if it doesn't, then it doesn't. And I'm just going to try to go from an unbiased perspective and learn about the world and learn about everything and see where it goes. So that's what I did. I left Bible school there and came back home, and I ended up going to secular college instead and taking classes like biology and astronomy. And, in biology class, I learned about how proteins and different molecules can fit together, and that you don't necessarily have to have a deity creating life, that a lot of these naturally occurring things can happen in nature. Maybe a deity did do all of that. It's hard to say one way or another, in my opinion. And it's okay, whatever you believe, but this is kind of what I learned, basically, is what I'm trying to convey. So as I learned more about the possibilities that science could explain the origins of life, and that like the stars, like the earth here is made of star stuff. Like the materials around us were compressed and condensed in stars that were then exploded and spread throughout the galaxy. And our solar system was formed from this material, water and all of this stuff. And so I had a new framework for understanding the world that didn't require the biblical narrative anymore. And soon after that, also, I studied philosophy, took philosophy courses, learned about different ways to understand morality apart from religion and different other religions and how they interpret morality. And it was very eye-opening learning about all of these different things. And I think one of the biggest things that really influenced me a lot was also how, I'd always thought the soul was like this magical thing that's like, just there, right? And, but when they do experiments on the brain, it can really affect who we are as people. Antidepressants can completely swing a personality from one person to the next. Is that affecting your soul? What is that? So I believe the evidence there points towards that our soul, if we have one, is centered in the neurons in our brain. And so this new revelation, this new knowledge, combined with philosophy, biology, astronomy, basically formed a whole new worldview for me eventually. A worldview that I believed was grounded in reality. And ultimately now at this point, if I were to say, what is the greatest good? I would say the greatest good is providing the most pleasure for the most people, and that includes yourself as well as others. And the greatest evil would be causing needless pain in others. Like if you go out of the way, like think about someone like Hitler, who went out of his way to destroy millions and millions of lives and just completely hurt so many people. Like that's tremendous evil. And that's the way I learned to interpret the world. So for me, when I left Christianity, it completely disrupted my life. All my friends and family were gone, like pretty much. Like it caused this huge rift in my life, because you meet those people, you hang out with those people every Sunday, Wednesday night, church events. And when I no longer felt that drive to just spread the word of God and make that everything about who I was, there was a huge hole of like, what do I do with my life now? And after basically gathering this new knowledge, this new framework for life, I settled on a new purpose, which was to enjoy life and help others do the same. Ultimately, that's, I think if I were to encapsulate it all in one sentence, that's what it would be. But if I were to explain that a little more, like I think there's two aspects there to enjoy life. So I think I have a moral responsibility to try to make my own life enjoyable for myself. That's okay. I don't have to feel guilty about enjoying life. You know, sometimes I would feel guilty as a Christian because I didn't spend all of my time spreading Jesus around the world, you know, like that was a bit sad for me sometimes, you know, and a lot of Christians feel that pressure. And that's why a lot of them go and like abandon all their material possessions and jump over to Africa, you know, or whatever, try to convince people to become Christians. I had a lot of friends that did that. And so the second part of that is to help others. So to help others enjoy life. And so I think I have a moral obligation not only to enjoy my life, to have a balance, but also to help others enjoy theirs. You know, and that means maybe volunteering, or if I see an opportunity to help someone, reaching out and helping, especially if it doesn't significantly hinder or impair my own life. You know, that's, I think, a big part of that. And I think as you try to search for your life purpose, especially within this broad framework, it really is such a wide spread. Each of us can enjoy life in completely different ways, and that's okay. Maybe your hobby is to garden, and you can also share that hobby with others and bring joy to others through the flowers that you cultivate. Or you're an artist, you create art. And maybe you're an engineer and you create buildings that people use. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you can enjoy what you do and also bring enjoyment and better society as a whole. And I think the other part of this is that it's not just about the short term, like, yeah, pleasure. Let's just load up on heroin and get high all the time and just forget about life. Like, it's not about that. It's about your total enjoyment throughout your lifetime and about the lifetime of others. So at least that's the way that I see it, is that, you know, I want to be physically fit, so I exercise. I want to eat right so I can enjoy life later on, have better health. I want to have good relationships with others because I think relationships build and bring joy to your life and to their lives. You know, even if you disagree with someone, I think you can still have an amicable relationship with them. And I think ultimately, I think that, you know, the whole people are more important than beliefs is so important for us to live out in our day-to-day lives, because that's really a way that we can help bring joy to others and not cause needless pain in the lives of others through division and fighting. So ultimately, I think it comes down to, you know, if we're all selfish human beings, the amount of enjoyment that we'll give each other will be a net negative, right? If we're act selfishly. But if we can have a more positive mindset where we're trying to build each other up and bring enjoyment to others, I think that we'll end up with a multiplying factor to each other's happiness and joy. So I guess if that's, if anything, I guess that's what I would really like to encourage others today, is to find your own happiness, find that balance. Don't just focus on short-term pleasure. Don't just focus on long-term pleasure. Find that balance for the time period, and then also focus on other people. Find ways to give and to volunteer, or to donate your time, or to just whatever it is. Maybe even just be your job, or giving to your children, or whatever it is. But find ways to do it all without hurting other people. So that's how I find my life purpose now that I'm left Christianity. So thank you for letting me share. And
Richard is going to follow me real quickly, but I need to point out that this morning my husband, my gay husband, and I were the only people who showed up at the storage, and the only people who set up the sound system, the coffee system, the table back there, and all the signs. We need help. And Richard is going to tell you about an app he's setting up. We need people to show up 45 minutes early, commit to showing up 45 minutes early to help get this show ready to go so the rest of us can come here and enjoy it. Thank you.
Hey folks, thanks for coming here to Oasis. We love having you here. Welcome to all the newcomers, and I want to thank CB for injecting a little energy and excitement into the proceedings. But yeah, you know, in order to set up something like this, you know, you have to have volunteers and stuff. It's an all volunteer effort. And I just discovered an app called Sign Up. Now there's signup.com and various other sign up type things, but this one is free. It's just called Sign Up. If it has any other words, that's not the right one. And so anybody who's interested in maybe coming a little bit early, even if it's not every Sunday, just even if you agree to come once a month a little bit early and help with hauling a few things, for example, from the nearby storage shed, put it in your car, bring it here so that it's, because it doesn't all fit in one car very easily. Help with setting up the audio equipment, help with setting up the sign and a few other things. And some people say, oh, I don't know how to do that. Well, it's pretty straightforward, but what I do when I come, I don't know how to do it either. So I just do whatever somebody who does know what's going on tell me, and I just do that, you know. So you don't have to be a genius, and I've proven that because I've helped out also. So but having said that, if you are into, you know, if you were the AV person at your school or whatever, and you've always wanted to get back into it, here is your opportunity. We also have typically videography happening and stuff like that. So and sometimes, like this morning, when a couple people get sick, suddenly it's very challenging and stuff like that. So I want to be a little bit modern and use this app, which I don't know how to use yet. I just discovered it, but I like it because it's free and seems to be capable. And so please consider downloading the Sign Up app, or even if you don't like apps, you could just show up early. Now, right now we're starting at 11. So typically people show up as early as 10, like 45 to 60 minutes early to help out with stuff. But on October 9, we're going to move to a 10:30 start time. And so the 45 to 60 minutes early would need to be before that. So, yeah, and then you can communicate with me. My email is richard@houstonoasis.org, richard@houstonoasis.org. And I'm not even going to mention money and the black hat in the back where you could drop some money, because I'm really focusing on the volunteer stuff today. It isn't just about money. And so there you go. Thank you so much.